And I said, what's this? And he said, so-and-so Dent was my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, my mom's great, great, great uncle was J.W. Dent's brother. So we've got Dents in the family tree, and we've got Watkins in the family tree, and we've got Willets in the family tree.
Oh,
and
cool.
So we call J.W. Dent the family bourbon.
Hey everyone, for our Patreon August giveaway, we have t-shirts and rock glasses from today's guest, Kentucky Bourbon Boys Distillery Tours, as well as a t-shirt from our past guest, Eight Oaks Craft Distillers. I also threw in a special flask from Old Forester to one winner. Our winners for the month of August were Christopher Miller and John McWalter. Congratulations, fellas. Next week marks the end of September pledge period, and that means another giveaway will happen in a few weeks. Next month, you can look forward to some killer rocks glasses from 12 different distilleries as part of the giveaway. So you have until September 30th to get in your pledges for this month. Today's episode has an additional 20 minutes of listening pleasure that didn't make it in the podcast, and you can only listen to every second of it by supporting the show on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com. and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof. And the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com. And you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. And we're back with another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. Just Kenny here today. I'm flying solo. Ryan can't be here because we all have actual jobs, and today is another bright, sunshiny day in Kentucky, and it's his busy time of the year, so he's not going to be able to join us today. But I've got another great group of guests that are on here today, and it really plays in well to what's been going on. A typical theme that we've seen is a lot of people are coming to Kentucky for bachelor parties or for new vacations or weekend getaways. And we are having another guest on today that can help you enjoy that experience a lot more. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. So today we have Tim Hagan and Ethan Pardieu. Both of these gentlemen are a part of the Kentucky Bourbon Boys, which is a tour group. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. So before we kick it off and talk about your actual jobs and the tours and everything like that, let's learn a bit more about you all. So, Tim, I'm going to push it over to you first. Kind of give us your love affair with bourbon, how it started. Was it a family thing or just growing up in Kentucky, that sort of thing?
Well, that's a hard question because we're all Kentucky Bourbon Boys. We're all born and raised here, the whole group. And growing up as a kid, my dad always had Old Crow in the house. And so we saw that all the time, but we didn't care for it. And we really didn't drink a lot of bourbon until 2011. And at that time, we saw the bourbon trail was really kicking up. And there was a lot of interest in, getting the passport stamps and getting the T-shirt that you would get at that time. So, we went on that first tour and didn't really know anything about bourbon much at all. And we had a great trip. And we did 3 tours in one day. And we said, this was so much fun. We need to do that again. So we went a month later, did the rest of the tours, got the T-shirt. And of course, we were the typical, well, it tastes like bourbon. Mm-hmm. And I might have a hint of honeysuckle in there. We joke about being able to pick out flavors because we couldn't tell anything at the time. But since then, we've really enjoyed learning about bourbon and really expanded our knowledge base from there. And so we now have collections and we argue about which bourbon we like better. And of course, we can't pick a favorite bourbon.
That's the easy cop out right there, right?
It is.
So Ethan, I'll push it over to you. So how did you get into spirits, bourbon, or anything like that? And also say your ages too, because we have a pretty varied age range here.
Right. Well, I'm 26, and I actually had never had bourbon until we started doing the bourbon trail and like the trips that Tim was just talking about. And when we went the first time, I think it was like 2 months or 3 months after my 21st birthday. So like I said, I don't think I'd ever had a drop of bourbon in my life until that day. And I wasn't a big fan the whole day. Like they were all laughing at me because I was having to force down my tastes at each distillery and everything. But after that, I found a couple that I liked and started going from there. And the more we went, the more we drank. And so I was able to find my palate that I enjoyed.
So I guess what was those baby steps like? So how did you get started into it to be able to say like, oh, okay, well, I can start stomaching this stuff a little bit more now?
I'm going to embarrass myself. I actually started drinking like the American honey that Wild Turkey has, or I was just drinking bourbon and Coke. But then the more I drank with these guys, they were all giving me shit all the time.
That's how it works.
Yeah. And so I got tired and started finding the lower proofs and things that I would drink, found my range of preference.
Right. And then Tim, we forgot to mention, you don't have to say if your age range, right? Because another thing to talk about is it's just not you two that take care of Kentucky Bourbon Boys, right? But you got a whole slew of people that are doing this,
right? Well, I'm the old fart in the group. I'm a 56, and I retired last year. And so when I retired, they all said, "Now it's time. You got to step up and do something,
you want. Yeah,
and start the business. Because you have time. All the rest of us are working, and so that's when we got together last July. I had retired in June, and a month later we had our first meeting and said, "How do we do this?" And it's gone from there, and it's gone really surprisingly well.
You're the typical like new age retiree who just doesn't know how to quit working, right?
Oh, that's right. I have a problem with saying no, and and everybody who knows me knows that, and I'm sure they're laughing right now. But I couldn't sit around and just do nothing, of course, and we really talked for about 3 years about doing this and starting this business and starting to do tours. And it was intimidating, not knowing much about business at all, really, and how to get started. And the Bourbon Boys are made up of 9 guys. You can see on our shirts here, we have the original 9. Because it's our play on Sons of Anarchy, because we're just like those guys.
Gotcha.
Just like them.
Just like them. And there were 9 of us on that original tour. And you talked to Laura, who's my daughter, and to set up our get-together today. And she contacted us and said, "Hey, you guys need to to take a look at this bourbon trail and go on these trips. It looks like it's getting big, and you all would have fun. So 9 of us got together. It was mostly family and then some friends and my son-in-law and a nephew and brother-in-law. And there were 9 of us in the van, and Laura drove. And we knew she could handle 9 guys easily, which she did, and put up with a lot of stuff from us both trips, but was able to dish it right back out. So that's how we got started. And that's where the Bourbon Boys, she tagged us that day on that trip and called us the Kentucky Bourbon Boys.
That's awesome.
That's how that got started.
And now, was the idea because you saw a niche in the market to say, like, there could be more competition that could be built here? Because for as much as we know, there's only a few players in this town, right, that are actually doing it. So I think you might be onto something, because I could travel to Chicago and I could see 9 different Segway tours that are available to me, right? But when you come here, there's just a variable pick. So is it just a niche that you kind of saw, like we could help fulfill that market gap?
Well, it didn't even really start as a desire like to have a company or anything. It was just, we kind of just grew, because like he said, we did 2 or 3 tours, just us. We did the Bourbon Trail once, and then I think we did 1 or 2 more tours after that, just the group of us, and then maybe plus or minus a couple people. And then after that, like the wives were brought in, and then more families started coming in, like people that were just hearing us talk about it. And so more and more people started coming in. People would invite friends, and people just wanted to be involved because they just heard we were having a good time. And Laura was blogging like half of the tours. And so people just wanted to do it. And then people were like, hey, you all could do this with whoever.
Exactly.
Like people would pay to do this with you. And we're like, hey, let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So good way to make some money on the side, right? Yeah.
Well, and that's, we said, we don't know that we'll ever make any money, but we're having a good time doing it. And like Ethan said, people heard about us doing those 2 trips and said, hey, we'd like to do that. And that original group of 9 has now grown to about 100 people in the social group. So when you hear about Kentucky Bourbon Boys, it's kind of 2-part. There's the social club, and it's pretty informal. I mean, we don't charge a membership or anything, but people not yet. But people hear about it and they want to be a part of the activities. And so I organize the outings, and we'll say, okay, we're going to go check out these 2 distilleries on Saturday that none of us have been to. And so I'll put together the lunch. And so we'll carpool and take 30, 40 people and hit a couple different distilleries. And people always say, when's the next one? What's your next event going to be? So after that, they got to saying to us, you all need to start the business, like Ethan said. And we really laughed and thought that wasn't going to be possible. And one thing has led to another. And so we've done about 20, 25 tours now since February.
That's awesome. So talk about your tours a little bit. Like what's the offering, the format, and all those kind of different things?
I mean, we kind of set it up to where people can set up however they want. It's very individualized. When you go on our website, we have it set up to where you can pick directions. And so you can pick any of the distilleries that are in that general direction. And then we have corresponding restaurant options and stuff where we've had discussions and got in with a couple locals, and they can set it up to pretty much however they want.
Okay, so kind of give us an idea if I want to go east of Louisville or south of Louisville or wherever I want to go. And by the way, is Louisville the main starting gate where you guys do all your business?
Well, what Ethan was talking about is we call them regions or areas. So when you go on the website, you can see that the Louisville area has the distilleries that are all, close to town here. And with so many that are in development coming soon, that it's really going to explode, because there are so many distilleries in the works for the next year that list will continue to grow. And then we offer an option to go south around Bardstown and all those distilleries. And of course, there are several new ones on the way there too. And then we'll go east, and we don't mix and match because of the drive time. And people coming from out of town don't realize how far apart some of these places are, and they want to do something in the east like Woodford, and then they want to go to the south and go to Jim Beam, and it's, we'd spend a lot more of our day driving. So we group the tours and give them the option of where they'd like to go. And sometimes they know exactly. They'll ask, we want to go to Willett and Makers. And sometimes
that was actually the last tour I did.
And that was. And then other times they'll say, we don't know anything. We just like bourbon. Where should we go? So then we get creative with them, and we try to give them an experience that they'll see a range, and maybe go to a craft distillery where there are a handful of employees, and then go to one of the big ones where there are 300 to 400 employees. So they get a really varied experience, but they come away, they love it, and they can't choose which one was their favorite.
I mean, I remember going and looking at a few craft places as well, and then also going to the big boys. And it's such a huge, stark difference in the fact of what's happening, because you've got one side of the table here and actually it might be at a literal table where they are writing the barrel number on the bottle and adhering the bottle and actually filling it out of like it could be off the still, it could be off a Gatorade jug. You don't really know what you're going to get when you go to those craft distilleries. And then you've got the other side of it where it's completely automated. You've got these massive systems that are doing pretty much everything for you. And you've got union workers that are sitting on the side, just basically making sure that nothing's going wrong.
Right.
Yeah. But it is a pretty interesting way to look at it. So talk about, when you want to take a tour with the Bourbon Boys, you mentioned carpool. Is that something that you do, or do you have buses or shuttles or anything like that? Like how do people kind of get around to all these different places?
Well, when we do the social events, we carpool, and it's always a very combination of folks that go, family, friends, people from our churches, neighbors, just all kind of mix and match, and it's different every time. So we just carpool and say, meet at this distillery. We went out to Kentucky Artisan Distillery last Saturday, and then went down and toured Copper and Kings, which we hadn't done yet, and that was a great tour, both places. But otherwise, we have vehicles that we lease and that we take folks in, and we ask them if there's a special occasion, if it's somebody's birthday or if it's a bachelor's party, we want to know about that. And so we try to take care of the special honoree whenever we do something like that too.
Gotcha. So I guess another question is because, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I figured is you would have some sort of shuttle or way that people are getting around, and it's your all's job to kind of fill people's knowledge and kind of break up that time between everything with giving them information. So give me some idea of how did you go about learning a lot of the things that you know about Kentucky bourbon or the individual distilleries that you're talking about as you are making your way between all these different places?
Well, a lot of it is we've called them our recon tours. We kind of have just gone out and we'll go to distilleries, and then as we're going, we're just looking. Like 2 or 3 of us will go, or sometimes a bigger group, and we just are watching for whatever's there. Like we'll drive through these little towns and see like what we call mom and pops, and just these little hole in the wall type restaurants that we know people aren't going to get anywhere else, because that's been our focus. Is we don't want them, our clients, to only experience bourbon. We want them to experience Kentucky. And so we've just kind of gone out and found what's there. And the more we go on our routes, or like we'll come outside of our routes just to see what's there, and we're paying attention for whatever people might want to see.
So not a whole lot of like Panera box lunches is what you're trying to say.
No, not at all.
You won't have anything that's a chain.
We're not going to Applebee's.
But what we do, what we've seen is most of our guests are from out of town, of course. And a lot of locals say, hey, we've always talked about that, and we want to do that sometime, and we've never done it. It's kind of like going to Churchill Downs and going to the Derby, and not many of the locals make it there. But all the out-of-towners are here. But the out-of-towners will come in, and they don't know anything about Kentucky at all. And so Ethan talked about earlier, we try to be good ambassadors for Kentucky. And we've been able to leave people with a really good impression about the state, about the people, the culture, the food, the bourbon experience. And so that's been something that we didn't really realize was going to happen in the process that we've done this. But we've had great responses from every tour that we've had and every guest we've had about how much they love the countryside, and they loved the friendliness of the people and the bourbon. and the different places that we've taken them to have lunch. And we would tell them, when we go to this place, you're going to get good Kentucky home cooking, and it's going to be something that you may not have had before. So it's funny, we'll have somebody say, well, what's a hot brown? And then when they say that, we say, well, you're going to have one. Yeah. You need to order one because we can't explain that. And they love it.
That's awesome. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription. So I'm going to put you two on the spot here a little bit, right? Because, when we're traveling to distilleries or something like that, and you're on a shuttle bus, you've got to fill that time talking about bourbon knowledge or Kentucky knowledge. So kind of give our listeners a sneak preview of maybe something that's uniquely bourbon or uniquely Kentucky that you do to kind of like fill that time as you're going.
Well, first question, usually there's two questions that we get. And the first one is usually, how do you pronounce the name of this town? And so we have a little mini lesson on how to say Louisville, and they practice. And throughout the day, we'll hear them talking about Louisville, and they get pretty good at it. And then the other question that we invariably get is, what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey? And we tell them, first of all, we don't want to go over all the things they're going to hear on the tour, because we don't want to take some of that thunder from the tour and have them, hear it over and over again during the day. But we'll outline some of the basic things, and we'll have a long discussion about the difference in bourbon and whiskey. And that they'll ask a lot of follow-up questions about that because they're trying to understand. And so we try to leave them with that. And then we talk about how the Bourbon Boys started, what our experiences have been, the kind of places that we've gone, and some of our social events that we do. And they want to know a lot about that. And usually they want to know how they can become a bourbon boy. And then we get a little bit of the equal time issue about the bourbon girls. And so the girls' shirt you got here, we've got the cross out of the boys, and the girls is written in script over it. So the girls have their own shirts too. And they go with us on all the outings, but they'll ask, how do I get a bourbon girl shirt? And so we talk about those things. And then the history of the area and some of the interesting things that we'll see along the way, but we try not to point out and say, well, there's this and there's that. And, we don't want to bore them to death like that. And we'll also see that there's there are times where they want to talk with each other and they want to talk about what they're seeing, or they talk about their kids or whatever. So we play it by ear and see when it's appropriate to ask a question to get the conversation started or onto a bourbon topic, and when to leave them alone and let them do their thing too.
Gotcha. Well, I'll throw one your way just in case. You feel free to use this whenever you want. So whenever you're heading towards Lexington, you can always talk about dumb state laws, right? And in Lexington, as far as I know, it's still a law that you can't walk around the city of Lexington with an ice cream cone in your back pocket, right?
Yeah.
And for people that are outside the state of Kentucky, that if you don't know it, there used to be a huge ring of horse stealing. And so to deter people, and what people would use is they would have ice cream cones. That's what horses go crazy over, because it's basically just sugar. And they would use that to steal horses. And when you couldn't actually, tempt a horse by putting a sugar cone in front of its face, you would just put it in your back pocket and walk away. And then the horse would follow you. So technically it wasn't stealing. So yet another kind of funny Kentucky law.
Well, that's just something funny. Like, people have talked to us about, like, when they come here from out of state or out of the country, they're Googling, like, what can you do in Kentucky or in Louisville? Like all the like tourist attractions and things. And one of the things we keep hearing about, it's apparently on the top of the list for like things to do in Louisville, is to find Colonel Sanders' gravesite. And people ask us about it, and we're like, well, it's hell, I don't even know. Like, but then you go to Cave. I think it's Cave Hill.
Cave Hill, right down the street.
Yeah,
from here,
there's the stripe that goes all the way to it, and yeah, it's always funny. Like, because then we've taken
several groups,
two or three, and we get there and we're like, okay, here it is.
There it is.
Like,
well, apparently, maybe this is a thing. I don't know. I've only read it on TripAdvisor, but you actually have to go and get ketchup packets from KFC, and you leave it on its grave. Did you see any ketchup packets there? Or anything?
I didn't see any there when we've been there.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's just something that I made up then. Random facts I just made up. So we'll get back on topic here. So what's the most popular request for distilleries, or anything that people want to do? Like, I guess what's the one thing that is pretty common that comes up?
Makers. People want to go to Makers a lot. Of the tours I've done, I always go south because it's the route that I've come to know and be comfortable with. But I've done a lot of tours. Every tour I've done actually has gone to Makers, and then the other one or two have varied. But people are always wanting to see Makers and
dip their own
bottles and all that. But yeah, and also people want to see Bardstown. They want to see bourbon country. And so we'll go, on all the tours I've done, we've stopped at Mammy's Kitchen for lunch. And so we'll go eat there, and they'll get a hot brown or a bourbon burger. And then we'll go walk historic Bardstown, and they'll see Talbot's Tavern and stuff like that. They want to see Kentucky.
I always get the fried pickles when I go to Mammy's. It's always a staple for me. I don't know. Sometimes I'll just be there and hanging out in Bardstown someday, and I would just get a basket of fried pickles and sweet tea and just hang out. Right?
Yeah. Well, their hot brown is good too, and so it's debatable who is the best hot brown. When we go east, we do Darlin Jean's Apple Cobbler Cafe in Midway. We go there, and so they've loved the food there, and they always come out of there and say, I'm going to bring family here. We're going to come back over here and check this out. So the restaurants have been really good with us. When we head east, people generally ask for Woodford, and a lot of Buffalo Trace requests, but we will take them to Town Branch and Wild Turkey and Four Roses. And we've done that. And when we do that tour, we make a little side jaunt over and check out Castle and Key and the progress there that's going on. And they're just mesmerized by that place. And I love stopping there and just seeing the progress of the facility.
Yeah, every few weeks, something's changing, right?
Yeah, they just got some new doors on the front the other day I saw. And they want to just explore the whole place. And so we swing by there and check it out. And they talk about, well, when we come back, we're going to book another tour, and we want to see Castle and Key and check that out. So we generally, though, Makers in the south, and Woodford and Buffalo Trace in the east.
Are you seeing any kind of pickup for a lot of things that are happening in just the central Louisville place, Louisville area, of going to Evan Williams Bourbon Experience or anything like that? Or is that kind of like, well, we can start by going to Bardstown, and then we can maybe able to make it back for like the last tour of Evan Williams' Experience or something.
That's
like that.
what a lot of people are doing. Yeah. And Peerless, they'll talk to us about, we're staying at this hotel downtown. And we provide a flyer that's got a good cheat sheet of local bars and bourbon bars and restaurants and sites to see, including distilleries in downtown Louisville that they can walk to, like Peerless and the Evan Williams Experience. And, when they finish Whiskey Row and all those things open up there, and Rabbit Hole opens up over on Market, all those things happen there. There's just going to be so much to do. They can walk to a lot of it. But we've taken a lot of groups out to Stitzel-Weller, and they loved that. They do a great job with their tours there. And Kentucky Artisan Distillery now, they've got a great tour, and it's a neat little craft distillery there.
Right. Cool. Let's see. I have to cut this out. I'm trying to figure out where I was at here. Okay. How many people are on a tour, like on average, right? Because I'm sure that you get people that are calling for 2 or even parties of 20. So I guess how does that work?
Well, we've decided that we start at 4 now, like is our smallest number, because it's just better for us. But we've actually ranged from 4 to, I think the most we've done is 20.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple talks with groups about doing 30 in the near future. But yeah, I think our average has been like 4 or like 12 to 16.
Yeah.
Because we're either doing families or like bachelor parties.
So what it's turned out on our website, you can choose a public tour or private tour, but we're not big enough yet to cobble together groups of a few people from here and a few from there to have a public tour. And so we just tell people that
they're basically all private tours at this point. Right?
They're private tours right now. And if we can't accommodate somebody, we really, want to help them out. And so we try to be as supportive as we can to give them other ideas and to give them Julep's information so they can contact them and still get in a tour, because we don't want them to leave frustrated that I called and I couldn't get a tour with somebody. So we want them to have a good experience here, and we want to give them some good options.
And I guess how many, you said you were doing 20 plus tours since February, I guess. So how often is it to just kind of come around whenever business is good, or you have a regular cadence on how all this works?
Yeah, it's staying steady.
Yeah.
And, I talked to a group yesterday from St. Louis with 17 that have booked in October, and they're coming for a 40th birthday. So they're coming from all over the country. Ethan did a tour last week with a group from London. So we've had folks from Australia and London and all over the United States. And I talked to someone from Vancouver yesterday that's planning to come this winter and bring some guys down to do a tour. So right now, you're right. Basically, what we're doing is private tours, and it's groups of family or friends or celebrations.
And what's the cost on average per person when you are doing something?
I think it's about $140 per person.
$130. Per person, and there's a small booking fee on the website when they book, but that fee covers everything. You don't have to do anything once you book. If you tell us the 2 distilleries you want to see, then we'll book those, and if you don't know, we'll give suggestions, and then we do all the planning, provide the transportation. So we'll pick you up right here at your house or your Airbnb or your hotel, and then a bourbon boy goes along as your guide for the day. And then 2 distilleries and lunch are all included. So when you say, if you have your group, Kenny, that wants to go, we'll contact you beforehand and get your lunch order together. So Mammy's knows we're coming, and they know what time we're coming, and they know that you want the hot brown. And when we walk in the door, the food hits the table. And that's been one of the things that's really impressed our guests, is that we do all that pre-planning so that they don't have to sit around and wait to get their orders taken and wait for the food to be prepared. We let the restaurant know when we're about 20 minutes away, hey, we're headed your direction, and they get the orders going, and we walk in the door and the food hits the table.
Oh, and, fantastic.
It's really, they've been great working with us to be supportive of our time and for the guest time.
That's great. So talk a little bit more about all the Bourbon Boys, right? Because I'm looking on the website here, and you have a total of, I believe, 9 Bourbon Boys that make up the group, right? And Tim, you're number 1, right? Because I guess you're at the top of the ladder here, and Ethan at 26, you made it to number 3. So you must have done something to make it up quick. But kind of give us an idea of the listeners have had a chance to talk to you and listen to you now. Kind of give them an idea if they are going to be booking with the Kentucky Bourbon Boys, kind of some of the other gentlemen involved and who they could expect on their tour, and a little bit more about them as well.
I think we're all characters in our own way. As we said, or I don't know if I said earlier, but I am the youngest of the group. So you have the oldest and the youngest here. But about half the group is about closer to Tim's age, half are closer to my age. Because it's when the original group is, from my perspective, it's me and then my cousin's husband, 2 of his friends, and then my father and my 4 uncles. So, again, that gives you the age range, but all of us love bourbon. Everybody's a character. You might get somebody who's a little more of a rascal than others, but you're going to have a good time regardless.
Well, that's right. And it's, this family business that we started, and it's the 4 uncles of his. It's my brothers, 3 brothers, and then the son-in-law and the nephew and a couple of their friends. And we're all here locally, except for one's in Knoxville. So he's always working to get groups together to come here to tour with us. And then Laura is our unofficial member of the Bourbon Boys as one of the Bourbon Girls, because she was the driver. Mm-hmm. And so she does all of our social media and our graphics and a lot of our communication with folks. And she's does tours too. So you might get Laura on one of the tours or one of the Bourbon Boys.
Oh, fantastic. So if people want to know more about your tours and they want to know about all your offerings and how to book, how are they going to do that?
Well, they can find us on Facebook and on the World Wide Web at KentuckyBourbonBoys.com. And we're on Twitter and Instagram, and we're at KY Bourbon Boys for those 2 social media sites. And we're always posting. We post from our events and activities that we're involved in or things that we're interested in. And you can go there and find us. And there's a book a tour link right there. And so people will say, well, what do you guys do? What is the Kentucky Bourbon Boys? And we tell them we're a social group that like to have a lot of fun together, but we also provide tours for anyone that's interested. So you can reach us on those, and then our business phone number is on the website too. You can call and book a tour.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I definitely appreciate you all coming in today because, I think what you're doing is you're hitting a really good niche part of the market. There's always, as bourbon's booming, I don't even think it's hockey sticking, but I don't even think it's really hit the hockey stick point yet where it's going to get bigger and bigger. And I think that business is really going to be good for the tourism industry and everything like that. And it's going to be bringing in a lot of people. We've got people from all over the world that actually listen to this podcast. And now that they know that there is a good option out there to be able to have somebody to take over the reins when you come here you don't have to think about anything. You say, here, take my money and tell me everything I want to learn.
And we promise a good time in the process.
There you go.
Right.
It's even better, right? So want again say thank you all for joining me on the show today. Make sure you also follow Kentucky Bourbon Boys on Twitter and Facebook, all those great places. Follow us as well, Bourbon Pursuit. You can find us on Instagram at Bourbon Pursuit, Twitter at Bourbon Pursuit, and Facebook.com/Bourbon Pursuit. We try to put good information there for everyone. And if you do like the show, make sure you support us on Patreon. And actually, one thing I forgot to say is you also have a swag store on your site as well, right? So if you want a Kentucky Bourbon Boys t-shirt, polo, glassware, whatever it is, you can go and buy that as well. And we might even be having some Kentucky Bourbon Boys giveaway for our Patreon members. So
absolutely,
if you support the show, patreon.com, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. Go ahead and sign up and help support the show, and we're going to get some swag sent your way. Again, thank you, Tim and Ethan, for joining us on the show today. It was a pleasure, and we will see you all next time.